All right, how to share your faith journey with your kids and other people. Your testimony, your story of God's work in your life, on the one hand, could be a 90-minute documentary that is, if done with the right director, would be compelling and heartfelt and deep and personal. On the other hand, there's the elevator pitch, the 20-second version. And different degrees of those have different degrees of vulnerability required. And so similarly to friendship forming, if you think about if you have 5 cards and all 5 cards is every depth of dark of secret that exists in your whole life, and each card gets a little bit less vulnerable. One card is I used to not go to church, but then I started going to church. That's kind of like the 1 card version. The 5 card version is going to be all the insane personal details and the depth and emotional honesty of that. I do think as your child's growing up, and even as you're forming other friends who are far from the faith, it's important that you don't just share your faith once, but you share your faith at least 5 times with an increasing vulnerability based on earned trust and based on that person's interest, right? So my son's 5 right now, and I want to be able to share with him, yeah, Jay, I grew up going to church and I hated it. I thought it was so boring. I thought it made no sense. I thought the idea of miracles was crazy. I remember even being at kids camp, hearing about someone walking on water and then walking on water and being like, nope, these people are all crazy. Like I remember as young as the age of 8 thinking everybody here is crazy and feeling so bored at church and feeling like this is just lame school, and thinking every now and then my parents would take me into the main worship center with them and I'd go, this is kind of crazy. These people just feel like thin and sterile and I don't like it. And that kind of continued through middle school. But then I really, at one point, recognized during a song actually that I needed God and I was not smarter than God. And that type of story is totally appropriate for a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. I was during a song, Lord, I need you. Oh, I need you. I'm desperate for you. And something clicked. I don't know what it was. The Holy Spirit opened my eyes and I realized this is true for me, not just for other people. And I need God. And all of a sudden I found out that I needed God's grace, and it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. And so there's like that level of it. Then there's like increasing levels of vulnerability where you start to add talking about particular sins. And there's particular sins that people struggle with that I would say are the less shameful sins. I don't think they're less shameful to God, but they're less shameful socially, where you're talking about, I really struggled with self-righteousness, thinking I was better than people, being really harsh, being really mean. I'd make my teachers cry and I'd make my friends cry because I just had a fast mouth and I was really mean and I could make people feel small. And I thought God couldn't forgive me for that, because I really harmed a lot of people. And in high school, I remember thinking, how could God forgive that I've done so much harm to these people? And then I realized that there's people in the Bible, like the Apostle Paul, who did a lot of harm to people and God forgave them. And part of the reason God hates sin so much is because it harms people so much. And he was willing to let his son die on the cross, to have his son die on the cross so that I could be saved, because he was not willing to be light on sin, but he was willing to offer forgiveness, but costly forgiveness to him. And so now I'm talking about specific sins that cause harm, that really struggle with people. Now, there's another layer of the story that I think is part of like spiritual formation, but also sharing your faith story, where you start talking about specific wounding that's on the shameful side. Usually things related to like sex or money or power, maybe stories of abuse you suffered, or maybe stories of abuse that you were the culprit, not just the culprit, but the perpetrator in, where you're going, this is like kind of serious stuff that I want you to know about me. Maybe it's like stories like serious drug use, stories of serious rebellion, law breaking, right? Like in my story, I was first shown pornography in 4th grade. And I remember I would never tell my parents about it, and I was not going to bring it up. And I just remember like my body shaking and feeling like unsafe, but also very interested. And I kept a secret for a very long time, and I harbored it, and it kind of corroded my soul, and it led to a desire to see more. And it took me away from community. Like I was not an integrated person. I was lacking integrity. And it wasn't the first time, it wasn't me going to search out pornography, but it was someone at their house showed it to me. And at first, so that like suffering was not my fault. And it created sin later on that was my fault, but it was not my fault on the front end. And I wish that I've been interested and willing to talk to my dad about it when I was in 4th grade. I wish that I had someone who caught me and told me what is going on here. This will harm you. But no one did that. And not trying to assign blame, but look at me, my son, you will see things and they will harm you. And I want you to talk to me about it because I know what it's like to have to carry that on your own, and that shame and that difficulty and that distress. But here's the thing is Jesus was also shamed. Jesus was also embarrassed. That's part of the reason why they stripped him naked and crucified him, was to embarrass and to shame. And he died not just for our sin, but for our shame as well. And I am learning, and I'm continuing to learn, what it means to trust Jesus with my shame and not just my sin. And that's a lot of work, and that's difficult. And so that level of story obviously is probably inappropriate, not just ill-advised for a 5-year-old. But as your child turns 8, 9, 10, 11, you might think of your child as an innocent young child. And on the one hand, he or she is. On the other hand, you don't want to be last to the party on your child wrestling through the depths and darkness of the evils of the world. And so my encouragement to you is to think through the parts of your soul that need light and have needed light, and think through, what's the proper age for my child? What do I need to see in them before I share this with them? Because you don't want it to be something where you go, that would have been helpful to share with them when they were 13, but now it's 22 and they definitely know what sex is. And I missed that pitch. But being thoughtful, proactive as you consider sharing parts of your story with your child, being prayerful in it, recognizing their own developmental liabilities or differences. Every child's different. But what you do want to do is go, I want to be known by my child, not because I want to elicit their sympathy. That's kind of emotional manipulation, or even what some therapists would call emotional incest. I'm not trying to elicit their sympathy or be cared for by them, but I am trying to let them know that I know that whatever it is they're going through, I have a place in my heart for it, not just in theory, but in reality. I want to create an opportunity for them to come to me with anything. And I really want to help them see how I've invited Christ into those parts of my story and received his healing and his grace for them as well. Because kind of a clean, crisp conversion story is nice. Those 1 or 2 first kind of passes, I used to not believe, now I believe, that's great. But as we delve into the specifics of how the work of the Lord has landed in your life, it'll be the most helpful to your children.